Every city on Earth was built on one assumption: that people would stay. Someone chose a location, someone drew the streets, someone built the first house, then the second, then thousands. And then, something happened. And the people left. Sometimes slowly, sometimes in one night, sometimes they never came back. And nature, which had been waiting patiently the entire time, moved in. 10 cities, 10 different reasons they were abandoned. One outcome: the planet is taking them back. Pripyat, Chernobyl, Ukraine. April 26, 1986, 1:23 a.m. Reactor number 4 at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant exploded. At 2 p.m. the following day, the evacuation order came. Residents of Pripyat were told to take only what they needed for 3 days. Documents, a change of clothes, food for the road. They were told they would be back in 3 days. Nobody came back. 50,000 people left their city in a column of buses that stretched for kilometers. They left their furniture, their photographs, their children's toys, their pets, their cars, their entire lives. In 3 hours, Pripyat was empty. And it has stayed empty for nearly 40 years. Walk through Pripyat today, and time has stopped. A calendar on a classroom wall still shows April 1986. Bumper cars rusting in the amusement park that opened the day before the explosion. Swimming pool tiles cracking from decades of frost. A gymnasium floor collapsing under the weight of the trees that have grown through it. Because that is what happened, nature didn't wait. Within 10 years, the forest reclaimed the streets. Trees grew through apartment floors, roots split the pavement, moss covered every surface. Wolves returned, then lynx, then bears, then bison, the Chernobyl exclusion zone. 2,600 square kilometers of abandoned human territory has become one of the most biodiverse wildlife reserves in Europe. By accident, by disaster, by the simple fact that when humans leave, everything else comes back. The city that 50,000 people called home is now a forest, with buildings inside it. Prohm, Angkor, Cambodia. When archaeologists arrived at Angkor in the late 19th century, they made a decision that no one had made before. They restored most of the temples, cleared the jungle, rebuilt the walls, returned the stones to where they belonged. But one temple they left. Prohm. They decided to let the jungle keep it. And what the jungle did with it is one of the most extraordinary things on Earth. silk cotton trees, strangler figs, their roots flowing over walls like water, like something liquid that hardened mid-flow, gray and smooth against the dark stone. Some roots are wider than a man's body. Some have split walls that stood for 800 years. Some have lifted entire stone blocks and held them suspended in a grip of wood for centuries. The trees and the temple have grown into each other. It is impossible now to tell where one ends and the other begins. Remove the trees. The walls collapse. Remove the walls. The trees fall. They are holding each other up. Have been for 400 years. Top Prohm was built in 1186 by the Khmer King Giethoorn VII, a monastery and university, home to 12,500 people at its peak, served by 80,000 people in surrounding villages. The Khmer Empire collapsed in the 15th century. The people left, and the jungle, which had been cleared to build the temple, came back. Over 400 years, it reclaimed what was taken from it, root by root, stone by stone. Today, it is the most visited temple in Angkor, because it is the most honest. It shows exactly what happens when a civilization ends, and the forest gets its turn. Pompeii, Italy. At 1 p.m. on August 24, 79 AD, Mount Vesuvius erupted. Not gradually, not with warning. A column of ash and gas shot 33 kilometers into the sky in minutes. By the time the ash began to fall on Pompeii, the city of 20,000 people, most residents understood what was happening. Many fled. Many didn't make it. Some chose to stay. By the following morning, Pompeii was buried under 4 to 6 meters of volcanic ash. And then preserved. Everything the ash covered was sealed. Bread in the ovens, wine in the jars, graffiti on the walls, political campaign slogans, lovers' messages, insults, restaurant menus. The bodies of those who didn't escape, preserved as voids in the ash, which archaeologists filled with plaster to reveal the exact shape of a person's final moment. A dog curled in pain, a man covering his face, a family huddled together, their last positions cast in stone for 2,000 years. Pompeii was rediscovered in 1748, and it has been yielding secrets ever since. New excavations in recent years have found rooms never seen since 79 AD. Perfectly preserved frescoes, food still in its dishes, the skeleton of a man who survived the first eruption only to be hit by a falling stone block while trying to escape. And through all of it, nature has been working. Weeds grow between the stones, wildflowers bloom in the forum, figs and olives grow from seeds that have been there for 2,000 years. The city that was destroyed by a mountain is slowly becoming a garden. Bodie, California, USA. In 1877, a man named William Bodie found gold here. By 1880, 10,000 people lived in Bodie. 65 saloons, a red light district, a Chinatown, a daily stagecoach, a newspaper, a church, and a reputation as one of the most lawless and violent mining towns in the American West. By 1882, the gold was running out. People began to leave. By 1915, Bodie was almost empty. By 1942, the last mine closed. The last residents left. And then the state of California did something unusual. They declared Bodie a state historic park and established a policy of arrested decay. Not restoration, not preservation, arrested decay. The buildings are maintained exactly as they were found. Nothing is removed, nothing is added, nothing is cleaned, nothing is repaired beyond what is necessary to stop total collapse. Walk through Bodie today, and the town is exactly where 1942 left it. A pool table with balls mid-game, bottles still on the bar, a dress hanging in a wardrobe, machinery frozen mid-operation, personal belongings on shelves and tables exactly where their owners put them when they walked out for the last time. The buildings are weathering, paint peeling, timber graying, roofs sagging, the desert wind doing what it always does to things left standing in the open. "170 buildings remain, all of them dying slowly, all of them preserved in their dying. A town that is not a museum, not a ruin, something between. A moment in time that someone decided should just be left alone. Hashima Island, Gunkanjima, Japan. In 1959, Hashima Island was the most densely populated place on Earth. 84,100 people per square kilometer, on an island 480 meters long, 160 meters wide, in the East China Sea off the coast of Nagasaki. Every square meter accounted for. Apartment blocks built right to the sea wall, schools, hospitals, shops, a cinema, a pachinko parlor, a rooftop garden because there was no ground left to garden on. The island was a coal mine. Mitsubishi bought it in 1890, built concrete apartments that were the first reinforced concrete buildings in Japan. Housing the miners and their families on the same island as the mine, because there was no other way. The coal was underwater. You lived where you worked, and you worked where you lived. In 1974, Mitsubishi announced the mine was closing. Oil had replaced coal. The island was no longer needed. In 3 months, everyone left, every single resident, leaving everything behind. And the ocean immediately began its work. Salt air corroded the concrete. Seawater flooded the lower levels. Typhoons, which the island faces without shelter, tore at the buildings every year. Today, Hashima looks like a city after a war. Concrete skeletons, rusted staircases, collapsed ceilings, floors open to the sky, and through every crack, plants. The island is now a UNESCO World Heritage Site. You can visit by boat, stand at the viewing platform, look at what 5,000 people built to survive on a rock in the middle of the sea. And what 50 years of salt air and typhoons did to it when they left. Al Madam, Sharjah, UAE. From above, it looks like the desert is eating the houses from the inside. Sand dunes pressing against walls, sand filling doorways, sand spilling through windows like water through a broken dam. Rooms half full of sand, roofs collapsed under the weight of dunes that formed on top of them. Al Madam, a small village in the Emirate of Sharjah in the United Arab Emirates, 30 kilometers from Dubai. Two rows of houses, a mosque, a small farm, all abandoned. All being consumed by the Rub al-Khali, the empty quarter, the largest continuous sand desert on Earth. Nobody knows exactly why they left. There are no records, no official explanation, no disaster, no war. No documented reason why an entire community simply walked away from their homes and never came back. The houses are not ruined. They are structurally intact. Doors still on their hinges, windows still in their frames, furniture still inside, plates in the kitchen, clothes in the wardrobes. The people left as if they intended to return, and didn't. The desert made no such intention. The sand came immediately, grain by grain, through every gap, under every door, over every wall. The mosque is the most haunting. Prayer mats still on the floor, partially buried in sand. The mihrab, the prayer niche, visible above the dune that is built up inside. A place of worship filled with desert, as if the desert itself moved in to pray. Nobody lives here. Nobody is coming back. The desert has made that clear. It is simply eating what was left for it. Varosha, Cyprus. In 1974, Varosha was the jewel of the Mediterranean. A beach resort in Famagusta, Cyprus. The finest hotels on the island. White sand, clear water, celebrities on the beach. Elizabeth Taylor, Brigitte Bardot, Richard Burton. Then, in July 1974, Turkish forces invaded northern Cyprus. The residents of Varosha, 40,000 of them, fled in hours, expecting to return in days. Turkish forces sealed the district, surrounded it with fences and barbed wire, posted military guards, and declared that only the original inhabitants could return, then made return impossible. For nearly 50 years, Varosha sat behind that fence, untouched, frozen. The hotels still had guests' belongings. Food still in the kitchens, cars still in the showrooms with 1974 price tags, clothes in the shop windows, newspapers on the stands. And nature moved in. Trees grew through hotel lobbies. Sand dunes reclaimed the beach road. Wild plants cracked the tennis courts. Seabirds nested in the penthouse suites. Varosha became one of the most photographed ghost towns in the world. Visible from boats offshore. Photographed with long lenses. A city that you could see but not enter. In 2020, Turkey partially reopened it. A small section. A contested political decision condemned by the UN. The hotels still stand. Empty. Half swallowed by vines and trees. Waiting for owners who were told to wait 50 years ago and are still waiting. Villa Epecuén, Argentina. In 1985, it rained, and rained, and rained. The dam on Lago Epecuén, a salt lake in Buenos Aires province, broke. The water rose slowly at first. People had time to leave. They took their things, they drove out. The water kept rising. Within days, the entire town of Villa Epecuén was underwater. A popular resort town of 1,500 people. Hotels, shops, houses, thermal baths that had drawn visitors from Buenos Aires for decades. All of it under 10 meters of salt water. And it stayed underwater for 25 years. The salt preserved everything the way the ash preserved Pompeii. The walls, the floors, the foundations, the trees, stripped of bark, their white trunks standing in the salt water, like bones. In 2009, the water receded, slowly, over years, and the town reappeared. What the water gave back was extraordinary. Walls whitened by salt, cars transformed into sculptures, trees bleached bone white, the ruins of thermal baths encrusted with salt crystals, the entire town painted in the color of the lake that swallowed it. White. Everything white. One man came back. Pablo Novak, the last remaining resident. He had never fully left. He returned to the ruins of his town and lived there alone, among the white ruins, among the white trees, surrounded by the white silence of a town that nobody else came back to. He died in 2020, at 92. The last person who remembered Villa Epecuén as a living place. Kolmanskop, Namibia. In 1908, a railway worker named Zacharias Lewala was clearing sand from the tracks in the Namib desert when he found something. A diamond. Within months, the German colonial government had restricted access to the area. Within a year, a town was being built. Kolmanskop, a German colonial town in the middle of the Namib desert, built to house the workers and administrators of one of the richest diamond fields ever found. The Germans built it properly. not a mining camp, a town, with a hospital, the first X-ray machine in the southern hemisphere, a ballroom, a theater, a skittle alley, ice produced daily in one of the hottest places on Earth, a tram line, swimming baths. Families lived here. Children went to school here. People played piano here, in a desert, surrounded by sand. By the 1950s, the diamonds were running out. A richer field had been found further south. People left, first gradually, then entirely. And the Namib Desert did what it does. The sand moved in, through windows, under doors, room by room, year by year, until the houses were half full of sand, some entirely buried, some with only their rooftops showing. Walk through Kolmanskop today, and you wade through sand that has reached the height of the windows. Rooms where the floor is sand, where the walls are sand-blasted smooth, where what was a ballroom is now a dune. The desert is not dramatic about it. It is patient, grain by grain, year by year. It is simply taking back what was taken from it. Craco, Italy. Craco has been on this hill since the 8th century. Over 1,000 years of continuous habitation. Generations of families in the same stone houses. Churches built on top of older churches. A castle, a Norman tower, a university founded in 1060. And then, the hill started moving. Not dramatically, not all at once. Slowly. The clay underneath Craco was unstable, had always been unstable. But a series of earthquakes in the 20th century weakened it further. In 1959, a major landslide made 1,300 people homeless. The Italian government relocated the population to a new town in the valley below. In 1963, the last residents left, and Craco, still physically standing on its hill, became a ghost town. The buildings didn't fall. They're still there. Most of them. The church, the houses, the streets, the Norman tower, all still standing, all still recognizable as a medieval Italian town. Just empty, and slowly being claimed by the plants that grow through every crack, every window opening, every gap between stones. From below, Craco looks inhabited. It has the silhouette of a living town, stone walls against the sky, a tower, a church. From inside, the floors are gone, the roofs are gone, the staircases collapse under your weight, and through every opening, southern Italian sky, and the valley below, the valley where the people went. Who can look up at where they used to live and see a town that looks exactly as it did when they left, but isn't? 10 cities, 10 different reasons they were abandoned. A nuclear explosion that emptied a city overnight. A jungle that never stopped growing through the stones. A volcano that buried everything perfectly and preserved it for 2,000 years. a gold rush that ended and left a town frozen mid-life. An island mine that closed and took its entire population with it. A resort sealed behind a fence for 50 years. A lake that drowned a town and gave it back completely white. A diamond city that the desert walked into through the windows. A village where nobody knows why the people left or where they went. A medieval hill that started moving and hasn't stopped. In every case, nature didn't wait. It moved in immediately, patiently, without urgency, the way nature always works. One root at a time, one grain of sand at a time, one season of rain at a time. Nature was here before us. It will be here after. And it is always quietly taking back what we borrowed. Subscribe. Because the planet has more of these places than we have shown you. Where do you live? An apartment? A house? A street with a number? A city with a name? Now forget all of that. Because somewhere on this planet, right now, someone is walking out of their front door and stepping onto water. Not land, water. Someone else is climbing a ladder 40 meters into the air to reach their bedroom. Someone else has never needed a road, has never owned a car, has never needed to. And someone else lives inside a rock, not near a rock, inside one. These are not survival stories. These are not emergencies. These are homes, chosen, built, lived in for generations. 7 places, 7 answers to the question, what does it mean to call somewhere home? Kandovan, Iran. From a distance, it looks like a termite mound, or a hive, or something that was grown rather than built. Hundreds of cone-shaped rocks, each one with a door, a window, a chimney, smoke rising from the top. These are not decorations. These are not tourist attractions. People live in them, have lived in them for 700 years. In homes carved from volcanic rock, from the inside out. Kandovan, in the East Azerbaijan province of Iran, a village built into a field of Karenga, volcanic rock formations created by the eruption of Mount Sahand 7,000 years ago. The lava cooled, the ash compressed. The rain and wind carved the softer stone into these cone shapes. Each one slightly different, each one hollow at the core. And someone, 700 years ago, looked at these cones and thought, door here, window there, room inside. The homes have multiple floors, ground floor for animals, middle floors for living, upper floors for storage. All carved upward through the rock, connected by internal staircases cut from the stone itself. The rock regulates the temperature. Cool in summer, warm in winter. No air conditioning needed, no heating system. The rock does both, as it has done for 700 years. The village is still inhabited. The same families, the same carved homes. Some have added modern doors, satellite dishes, electricity cables running up the outside of cones that were carved by hand 700 years ago. Old and new, stone and satellite. A village that solved the problem of temperature 7 centuries before air conditioning existed. By moving into a rock and calling it home. Giethoorn, Netherlands. There are no roads here. Not closed roads, not broken roads, no roads. Giethoorn, a village in the Overijssel province of the Netherlands, has no roads connecting its houses. Never has. The only way to move through this village is by water. By the 7 kilometers of canals that wind between the islands on which the houses sit. Flat-bottomed boats called punters, pushed by a pole, silent, no engine, no noise. Just the sound of water and birdsong and the occasional voice from a garden. The village was founded in the 13th century by fugitives, people running from persecution who settled in a remote, marshy area that nobody else wanted. They dug peat for fuel. The peat digging created trenches. The trenches filled with water. The water became canals. The canals became the roads. And they never built actual roads, because they didn't need to. The canals worked. Today, Giethoorn has around 2,600 residents, all of them accessed by boat. The postman delivers by boat. The doctor visits by boat. Groceries arrive by boat. Guests come by boat. The bridges here, some 176 of them, are for pedestrians only. No vehicle has ever crossed them, because no vehicle has ever needed to. In summer, the canals fill with tourist boats, everyone moving slowly, everyone quiet, because the village requires it. No engines above a certain speed, no noise above a certain level. A rule enforced not by law, but by the village itself, by its canals, by its silence. Arrive here on a winter morning before the tourists, when the canals are still, when the thatched farmhouses reflect in the water, when the only sound is the water and the birds. And understand why someone who arrived here 700 years ago and found this marsh decided to stay and never build a road. Korowai tribe, Papua New Guinea. The ladder is 40 meters long. That is where the door is. 40 meters above the forest floor, above the roots, above the mud, above the insects and the animals and the other tribes that the Korowai have been hiding from for centuries. The Korowai people of the remote rainforest of southeastern Papua New Guinea build their homes in trees. Not small homes, full-size family homes with multiple rooms, a cooking area, a sleeping area, storage, all 15 to 50 meters above the ground. Built from the tree itself, from the wood and bark and leaves of the tree that holds the house, the platform attached to the trunk, the walls woven from bark, the roof thatched with leaves. Everything from the tree, supported by the tree, 40 meters in the air. The Korowai had no confirmed contact with the outside world until 1974. Missionaries reached them and found a people who believed that outsiders were demons. Called Kakwa, who came in human form and had to be killed. Trust took decades and is still fragile. The tree houses exist for protection. From floods, the forest floods seasonally. From insects, from predators, from rival groups. At 40 meters, you are above almost all of these threats. The children climb from the moment they can walk. 40 meters, on a notched pole, barefoot, without falling, without thinking about it. The way other children cross a street. There are an estimated 4,000 Korowai people, most still living in tree houses, most still above 30 meters. The forest below them is exactly as it was 1,000 years ago, because they live above it and leave it alone. Bajau Sea Nomads, Philippines/Malaysia. They are born on the water. They live on the water. They die on the water. And the water has changed them. The Bajau people, called the Sea Nomads, have lived on and in the ocean off the coasts of the Philippines, Malaysia, and Indonesia for over 1,000 years. Some live on boats, some in stilt houses built directly over the sea, villages floating above coral reefs, walkways connecting house to house, over open water, the reef visible directly below through the gaps in the planks. The children swim before they walk. Some never learn to walk properly because they spend so much time in the water. The Bajau dive for food. Free dive, no tanks, no equipment. Holding their breath, down to 60 meters, for up to 13 minutes. That is not a normal human capacity. The world record for competitive freediving is around 24 minutes. The Bajau achieved 13 minutes while working, while hunting, while carrying spears. Science wanted to know how. In 2018, researchers discovered that the Bajau spleen is 50% larger than average. The spleen stores oxygenated blood cells. A larger spleen means a larger oxygen reserve. When the Bajau dive, their spleen contracts, releasing extra oxygenated blood, extending the dive. The ocean changed their organs. Over 1,000 years of diving, natural selection favored larger spleens. The Bajau evolved specifically for the sea. Some Bajau deliberately perforate their eardrums as children to improve pressure equalization during deep dives. They choose pain for the ability to go deeper. When Bajau people spend time on land, many describe feeling unwell, dizzy, uncomfortable. They call it land sickness, the opposite of seasickness, for people who are built for the water. Uros floating islands, Peru. The island beneath your feet is not land, it is reeds. Totora reeds. Layered 3 meters thick, floating on Lake Titicaca at 3,810 meters above sea level. And you are sinking, slowly, as you stand on it. The reeds compressing under your weight. The island is alive. It is rotting from the bottom. The lowest reeds decompose in the lake water. And so the Uros people, who have lived on these islands for over 500 years, add new reeds to the top, every single day, replacing what the water takes, building upward as the bottom dissolves. An island that must be constantly rebuilt just to stay afloat. There are 42 of these islands on Lake Titicaca near Puno, Peru, home to around 2,000 people, all floating, all made entirely of reeds. Not just the island. The houses, reeds. The boats, reeds. The watchtowers, reeds. The furniture, reeds. Even some of the food. The soft white core of the totora reed is eaten raw. A slightly sweet, starchy vegetable that grows directly beneath where they sleep. The Uros originally built floating islands to escape the Inca Empire, and before that, to escape the Aymara people. Islands that could be moved were islands that could not be found, or attacked, or taxed. When enemies came, they cut the anchor ropes and floated away. That option still exists. The islands are still anchored with ropes tied to poles driven into the lake bottom. Every island can be untied and moved in an afternoon. A civilization that solved the problem of being conquered by making its entire homeland mobile. Today, the Uros maintain their traditional life. They fish, they hunt birds, they make crafts from reeds. Some welcome tourists onto their islands. The tourists step onto the island and feel it flex under their feet. Feel the water below. Feel the island breathing. And understand what it means to build your home on something that is always moving. Ushguli, Georgia. In October, the road disappears, not closes, not becomes dangerous. Disappears, under snow, under meters of snow, until April. And the 200 people who live in Ushguli, the highest permanently inhabited village in Europe, are on their own. No supply trucks, no doctors, no emergency services, no way in, no way out. Everything they need for 6 months of winter must be stored before the first snowfall. Food, medicine, fuel, everything. Calculated precisely. Because if you miscalculate, there is no going to the shop. There is no ordering online. There is only what you have. And the snow. And the months. Ushguli sits at 2,200 meters in the Caucasus Mountains of Georgia. The Nguri River runs below it. The Shkara Glacier, the highest peak in Georgia, rises above it. Around the village, more than 200 stone towers, built between the 9th and 12th centuries by individual families as refugees during clan wars. Each family owned their own tower. When enemies came, the ladder came up, the doors sealed. The family waited inside, sometimes for weeks. The towers have no ground-level entrance. You entered from the second floor, by ladder, which you pulled up behind you. Today, those same towers still stand. The same families still own them, passed down through 30 generations. In summer, a dirt road connects Ushguli to the nearest town. 40 kilometers, 2 hours in a 4x4, impassable in rain. A child born in Ushguli in November may not leave the village until they are 6 months old. Not because no one wants to take them, because there is no way. The village has been continuously inhabited for over 1,000 years. Through every winter, every isolation, every 6 months of being entirely on their own. They stayed every time. Setenil de las Bodegas, Spain. The roof of this house is not tiles, not slate, not concrete. It is a cliff. A solid overhang of rock that has been the ceiling of this street for 500 years. That was here before the houses were built beneath it. That will be here long after. Setenil de las Bodegas, a small town in Andalusia, Spain, built directly into the gorge carved by the Treehouse River. The river cut through soft rock over thousands of years, left overhangs, left caves, left protected ledges where the sun never quite reaches and the temperature stays constant. And people moved in, not into caves. They built proper houses. Whitewashed walls, wooden doors, flower pots, window boxes, all under a ceiling of solid rock that weighs thousands of tons above their heads. The rock keeps the houses cool in summer. The same rock that makes the summers brutal in the rest of Andalusia, 40 degrees in the shade. Here, the shade is permanent, built into the geology itself. There are 2 main streets running under the overhang. Calle Cuevas del Sol, Calle Cuevas de la Sombra. The Street of the Sun Caves, the Street of the Shadow Caves, named for which side of the rock the sun reaches. Restaurants operate under the overhang. Bars, shops. People eat lunch under a ceiling of stone, with a view down the gorge to the river below. The town has been here since before recorded history. The Romans were here. The Moors were here. The Spanish Reconquista tried to take it 7 times before they finally succeeded. Because a town built under a rock is very difficult to attack. The rock is the wall. The rock is the ceiling. The rock is the reason this town still exists. "500 years of living under something that could fall, and hasn't." 7 places, 7 different answers to the same question. Where do you live? On reeds floating above a lake. On the sea itself. In trees 40 meters above the ground. Inside a volcano's leftover rock. In canals instead of streets. Under a cliff that is your ceiling. In a village cut off from the world for half the year. What connects all of them is not the place, it's the decision. Someone looked at a reed lake and decided, here. Someone looked at a tree and decided, up there. Someone looked at a rock and decided, inside. Not by accident, not by necessity, by choice. The strangest homes on earth are strange only to those of us who chose differently. Subscribe, because there are more of these places than you can imagine.